Ready? Dan Rua from Admiral is going to lead a session for us on visitor relationship management. As the third-party cookie goes away, the relationship with users that we just talked about in this digital media drill down about how do we improve this relationship? And first of all, I said users. People say users, people say audiences. I think we're talking about something different now. I think we need to come up with a new term. Dan, what do you think?
I love visitors. They're all visitors at the end of the day. I mean, some of them become subscribers, some of them are email members, but they're all visitors to our sites.
All right. Well, Dan, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Let me go ahead and do a screen share here. All right, and Lynn, just to double check, is audio good? All right. So we've got a fantastic panel for everyone today. We've been able to get some top publishers, and Gavin, we're going to turn the tables on Gavin and make him actually a panelist instead of an interviewer. So we've got John Byrne, CEO of Raw Stories, going to join us, Catherine Beatty from Encyclopedia Britannica, and again, Gavin. But before that, I'm going to talk a bit about, what is visitor relationship management as context. Before I do that, I do want to put in a plug for a big push we're making at our booth for Toys for Tots. Last year, we had a massive campaign to get toys for local kids. You can see this picture of our lobby just filled with toys. We're trying to multiply that impact this year. And so everyone who visits Admiral's booth and clicks the blue check-in button is going to add an extra $5 to this year's campaign. So I would ask everyone to go do that as soon as you can. All right. So coming off of that last discussion, I think the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are apropos. For the past few years, 2016 to 2020, it's really been a wake-up call for the internet's core third-party, no consent business model. It started with ad blockers as a shot across the bow back around 2015, 2016. Privacy blockers have been growing. Death of the cookie, now we're all talking about, and GDPR, CCPA. On one level, those all felt like individual fire drills, but in reality, they're all part of the same theme, which is chipping away at that third-party, no consent model. Digital publishers are already losing billions of dollars, and the worst is yet to come. We believe that 2021 and beyond is really about first-party, consent-based visitor relationships, data, and revenue. So that's why we built a new paradigm that we call visitor relationship management. It is one tag, zero code, marketing automation for media publishers to build relationships with their visitors. If you think about it, for the first couple of decades of the internet, a publisher didn't need to build relationships with their visitors. They throw up content, they attach ads, visitors come and go, and they had a business model. But as we move into this new world where it's all about first party, you actually need to build relationships with your visitors. That's not an ad tech discipline. That's a MarTech discipline. And so all publishers are going to be building this into the future. What Admiral does, we give you one tag. You get immediate revenue analytics or what's possible from building relationships. From that one tag, our relationship manager kicks in. We can do things like ad block recovery, email, account creation, identity, social follows, donations, subscriptions, privacy consent, GDPR, CCPA, and whatever comes for US federal. Literally everything across the visitor journey the Admiral platform, VRM platform, can do for you. So instead of having 5 or 6 different vendors fighting over the user, you have one journey that takes that user from beginning to end and optimizes the relationship and ultimately the revenue for you as a publisher. Visual examples of what this looks like. NBC Universal did a big bake-off last year around ad block recovery as they start to reach out and say hello to their visitors. And they chose Admiral. We're now recovering millions of dollars a year for them. Email and accounts. We started out with email, which was traditionally focused on email newsletters. But as we see what's going on with identity, email is now possibly a pathway to identity. We see in our conversation with publishers, reg walls or registration walls growing in importance in 2021, and we can make that happen for you within 5 minutes. We've done this for the Army Times, and we're growing thousands of emails and accounts. Social subscriptions. It's another way to build relationship. If someone is a Twitter follower or a YouTube subscriber, they've got a closer relationship with you as a publisher, and we can drive those. GDPR and CCPA privacy consent. We were one of the first 10 in the world doing this for publishers. And again, this is all part of the continuum of closer relations with your visitors. And then subscriptions and donations, a lot of which we'll talk about with the panelists. John Byrne, one of our panelists, said that it actually revolutionizes business, this shift from just an ad-supported approach to driving subscriptions, which really sustained well during COVID. Who uses Admiral to do visitor relationship management? Thousands of publishers worldwide. 3 of the top 5 publisher media networks in the country use Admiral, as well as thousands of others. Just a couple data points on the panelists, the case studies for them. Before VRM, Raw Story essentially had 0 first-party accounts, 0 paid subscribers, and they were losing 25% of their revenue to AdBlock. After VRM, with accounts, subscriptions, and AdBlock, over 10,000 first-party accounts and subscribers, recurring revenue from those subscribers. VRM revenue was actually 2 times the prior losses. So not only did we recover the entire losses, but we actually grew revenue 2 times that. And Raw Story actually took the step to gate access to some content, and they actually grew traffic in the process. So it's not a trade-off. Encyclopedia Britannica and Merriam-Webster. Before VRM, 0 donors, losing 15% revenue to AdBlock, poor acceptable ads, RPMs, and latency as they tried to get some of that back. After VRM, using accounts, donations, and AdBlock recovery, thousands of donors really identifying their brand lovers, which they can do more with in 2021, getting full whitelist RPMs, no latency. And in 2020, we actually grew by 5x the VRM revenue and optimization with our customer love team. All right, before we go to the panel, just one more reminder to go help us get more toys for tots. And now we're going to move into some Q&A.
Nice. A lot of great info there. Catherine and John are jumping on. Well, thank you for having me as a panelist. It's so weird to be on the other side. I got to loosen a button on my shirt here. I'm a little nervous.
I love it, Gavin. We could turn the tables a little bit. All right, so let's start there, Gavin. You know, you heard everything I talked about relationships. I heard everything you were talking about in the drill down. You know, do you think that publishers should be planning on and kind of some sort of 11th hour Google heroics or a silver bullet identity, or do you see value in kind of just doubling down on real relationships with your visitors?
Well, I mean, the strategy you're talking about, I mean, it was pretty obvious from what Rich said. I mean, that's just what you got to do in general. And it's what we all should have been doing for some time. But we've been a little distracted by all of the mechanics with cookies and headers and whatnot. As for the death of the cookie, I'll try to hit it real quick. I ask myself a lot about, is Google actually going to kill it in 2022? And the more I just talk to myself, it's like, why wouldn't they? I mean, it just makes sense. They don't really have any use for it. But to go on, the publishers are going to need a wide strategy, and they're going to need multiple tools. They're going to have a bit of identity magic to deal with their authenticated, to monetize authenticated traffic, have first-party data marketplace to satisfy advertiser desires that way, and they're gonna have to work with some other people, such as third-party contextual partners, and see what revenue they can get that way. It's gonna be painful, especially because right when the third-party cookie goes dead, I mean, advertisers are gonna go to the walled gardens. They're gonna go to Facebook. See, the dog agrees with me. They're gonna go to Facebook. They're gonna go to Google, but they'll come back. It's just gonna be a painful moment.
Yeah. What about registration walls? We're hearing publishers talking to us about registration walls, reg walls. Have you heard much about that as you're talking to others in the industry?
I led a panel talking about logins and reg walls. There's a lot of experimentation going on right now, and in the pandemic, and right now, because the pandemic is definitely not over, and goodness knows what's going to happen Q1. It's a good time to experiment and see what users will pay in terms of real cash as well as data, and really work on your value exchange there and how you offer it. That has been one of the biggest challenges for publishers, is figuring the right way to phrase what they're giving, because too long it's been seen as free, which is not.
So that's a good segue over to John. Gavin talked about the value exchange and really kind of honing the value exchange. What did you do? I shared some of the numbers. What did your team do, let's say a year plus ago, to set themselves up for 2020 and just kind of dive into subscriptions and relationships?
So we really started with remonetizing the ad block users, and we were so surprised by how successful that was that we sort of moved into doing paid subscriptions for ad-free, and we've just found real enthusiasm from our readership for getting rid of the ads and paying for a monthly subscription, even though there isn't a huge difference in terms of the content between the site with ads and the site without.
And so let's carry that through a little bit organizationally, because if you're just doing ads, then you've got your ad ops team. But as you start to do subscriptions and you start to really think about the journey for your visitors, that takes some more expertise. And so what did you do? Did you add some new hires or roles with your team? How have you structured yourself?
So we actually had a very fortuitous situation where a nonprofit that produces original reporting reached out to us looking for support. And so we formed a partnership with them in which we supported more of their work using the money from the subscriptions program. And, so that readers had more of a buy-in rather than just sort of, you're paying for this site that was free before. It's you're paying for this site, but you're also supporting, this important work by this former Pulitzer Prize winning journalist.
Yeah, nice. And then, having made that investment, talk a little bit about this crazy year, of COVID impacting CPMs and such. Was the bet on subscriptions helpful in kind of balancing that out for you?
Yeah, so subscriptions now makes up 5 to 10% of our overall revenue, which may not sound like a lot, but in a 2-year period I think has been pretty impressive. I think the other thing you're getting at, Dan, that I didn't really say is that what the whole process of having the subscriptions has forced us to do has been to be more thoughtful about the relationships we have with the reader and sort of respecting your consumer more. Because when you're completely free and you're just dealing with people in the aggregate, in the tens of thousands or millions, you don't really think about the relationship you have with the reader. And I think even in a sort of minimalist way where you're explaining your value proposition, you think more about what it is you're doing and how you can really add more value to your site that goes beyond what you were doing before. Because our business in particular has been, Facebook radically changed what we did in terms of, what the headlines were, what the length of the articles were, and sort of this subscription process and this, essentially this death of the third-party cookie is forced us to kind of go back to where we started, which was more original journalism, less, 150-word articles for Facebook to eat, and I think that's actually been a really positive development.
Super. Catherine, let's turn to you for Britannica. So, I guess I'd ask, heading into 2021, how are you thinking about building better relationships? How has the donations approach informed your plans?
Sure. Yeah, we started with Admiral really just focused initially on messaging the ad blocker users to just say, hey, our site's supported by ads. Obviously you love our content. You're coming here. Any chance you could whitelist us? If they didn't want to, we, had an option. Okay, continue to the site. We figured it's relatively low risk. And that was successful. And so then we looked at, okay, how can we expand this? What other choices could we give, right? Because some people have fair reasons for why they want to keep their ad blocker on. But what we were hearing from them was, I have these valid, sometimes very technical, some of our users are very technical, who knew, reasons for wanting to keep the ad blocker on, but they do love our brands and they still wanted to be able to support us in another way, because I think as we've had more, in general, the industry has had more of these conversations with users, people are starting to understand that value prop, right? They get that advertising is subsidizing their access to a free website or free content. And so then we included this option for, or would you like to make a donation? And we got great feedback from that. I mean, obviously we started seeing people donate, which is great, but also just seeing some of the super generous donations. We didn't put a specific dollar amount. We said, hey, if you'd love to keep your ad blocker on, that's great too. We get it. Do you want to make a donation? Any amount is fine. And I'll tell you, we've gotten donations from a single user in the 3 digits. Like, that's amazing. So I think, it was great to see that back and forth with them really obviously valuing our brand and valuing our brand and our content and wanting to support us. And so, then we've also, from the messaging point of view, been able to expand a little bit more. What about, would you like to sign up for a subscription on Britannica, for example? That gives you ad-free access to all of our content. It's an annual subscription, that kind of thing. And so we are kind of continuing to roll out and test out, how do our users, our visitors, want to support us? And we can provide those options and those alternatives.
Super. Last question. I think we're getting close on time. At Admiral, we really strive for radical simplicity with one tag install, and we really double down on customer love as a differentiator. How have we done for you, and what's your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like probably everyone at this conference, we can be a little jaded about, sure, it's just one little piece of script you're gonna put on your page. But in this case, honestly, it was super easy. It is. It's one piece of script, and once it's on, whatever additional products I choose to expand or choose to participate in, it's just active immediately. And I don't know about everyone else, but an opportunity to minimize my dev team's involvement is practically a critical KPI these days. If they can do one and done, and then I can iterate, I can work with product teams, I can, do whatever else we want to do with that and not have to go back to that queue to bribe them, to beg them, all that fun stuff that we get to do, then it makes everything so much more efficient. So that was a great experience for us. The support that we get from the Admiral team is great. I can give a shout out to Brian over at Admiral, who I've already told him I want to figure out how to clone him, because he and his team are great, super responsive. So that has helped alleviate a lot of the heavy lifting on our side.
Super. Thank you, Catherine.